Hello and welcome to the Alpha Demo and Q&A webcast. Dave McCormick, VP of Product Management here at Alpha Software, and I'm pleased to be joined by Sarah Mitchell, our Director of Customer Success. Today's demo portion of our demo and QA, I think you're going to find very interesting. It has to do with consuming Google API data, which is a really interesting way to add extra functionality to your applications by putting it in touch with all kinds of data and data processing. We're also here, of course, to answer your questions, and we'll take those questions by right there in the questions box or the chat box, depending on your interface. You'll find that in the GoToWebinar control panel. Outside of the demo, we'll also take questions at guides, GUIDES at alphasoftware.com. All right, so let's get started. Hello, Sarah, are you there?
I am.
Excellent. I like that background.
Yes, the
Very
best
fall.
season has started.
The best season. All right.
Yes. Summer is over. Fall is here. Long live fall.
I
My
like
time.
fall. Is it the best season? I don't know.
It is. It's not
All
hot
right.
anymore. Oh, yep. It's
Excellent.
sweater
Well, I'm
weather
glad you
season.
chose Google APIs because there are so many times where I'm like, oh, let's connect this up to a map. Oh, let's connect this up to whatever, and Google has an answer for you. But sometimes it's a little bit tricky. But hopefully today you'll show us some secrets and techniques to demystify this.
Perhaps I will. Or perhaps you
Excellent.
all leave more confused than when you came.
That
We'll find
happens sometimes.
out.
We'll find out.
So just quickly, reminder, DevCon is next month. It is in
Yes.
less than 3 weeks. It is so soon. Sign
And
up now.
you have 2 more days before the ticket prices go up to full price. So if you're even
Yes.
thinking about it, go to our website, go to alphasoftware.com/devcon 2022.
Register now, because if you don't get tickets now, you're gonna have to pay full price later. So
Exactly.
yeah. Today we're talking about Google API services, and this is an incomplete how-to, and you'll understand why when we get to the end of the webinar.
Okay.
So Google has a bunch of web services that they make available, and Alpha Anywhere lets you drop in any of those web services with a click of a button. And you can do it when you create a new web service on the Web Projects control panel. You click this option to create a new definition to consume a REST service. Consume, meaning you're going to call someone else. Everything else in here is about making your own. This one right here in the middle is the only one about using somebody else. So if you pick that option, you get this dialog. And it's got a place to enter a name and then 2 links. And the link that everyone should be interested in today is this one, the import Google service link. And if you click that, it opens up a dialog that lists every single Google service that Google provides. And this list is extremely long. It has a ton of stuff in it. It has things in it I don't even know what they are. I don't know what most of them are. But the last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of chatter on the forum and in our inboxes and support about the YouTube API and how do I use this? And it's really easy to get this set up. You go back, if we go back 4 slides, you click on this consume a REST service, you get this dialog, you click on Google service, you pick your API out of that list, you name it, you save it, you're done. But you're not. You're really not done. You've just done the extremely easy part of getting this stuff to all work. So to go back a little bit about what are Google services, it's this giant API library, and this is a view from the Google Cloud developer console, which you have to make an account and you have to enter a credit card and create a billing, set up the billing API to use this. Be aware that almost all of their APIs, not all their APIs, come with a whole bunch of upfront free quota. So I have almost never, in fact, I don't think I've ever run over the quota that I have on like our Google Maps or the YouTube API on these projects that I've worked on internally, because they give you a lot, and at least for me, my needs are low. So while it's scary to put in your credit card, unless you just go ham and really hammer those API calls, odds are you're not going to exceed your quotas. So if you don't have a Google Cloud Console account or a Google Developer account, you can go to console.cloud.google.com. And if you're not signed in, you'll get a whole bunch of stuff all over the screen telling you to sign up, start your free trial, $300 in credit. $300 in credit goes a really, really long way. I'm just going to put that out there. So don't be afraid to start this, because not only do you need this to use this Google Services stuff, but you need this if you want to use the integrated mapping in your apps. So this is just a heads up of what you have to do to get access to this. And that's the extent of our PowerPoint slides here. So I wanted to talk more about that screen we saw. So let's go here. This is Google Cloud services. I am logged in. I have a project that I made called Webinar Demo Sept, S-E-P-T, September, for today. Just to show you what this looks like. When you create an account, you won't have a project. You'll have to set up a project, and you may or may not have a whole bunch of stuff in the project when it's first created. Like all these APIs here were automatically added for me. We're going to ignore this for today. I just want to show you how to set up enabling the services and then configuring Alpha Anywhere named providers so you can actually call these services with your credentials and how that all fits together. So jumping around, where am I? I think I'm here. Here we go. So in those slides, I showed you how to make the web service. You come to web services, you click new, you click consume, you import the Google service, you find the one you want to use. I'm going to pick YouTube because I know how to use this one. You click generate, you wait a minute because it's generating right now, and then eventually the UI updates. And once you have confirmation about all of this stuff here, you name it, you create it. That's it. That's the whole setup. I now have a whole XBasic class full of all the API calls I can make to this service. So that setup piece is easy. And if we just real quickly go here and make a new XBasic script, just to show you how easy it is to drop some of these calls in. When you're in XBasic, and this is largely going to be in your UX component, your grid components, if you're still using those, or if you like to use those, anywhere you can insert XBasic, really. If you right-click anywhere on the screen, you get this big, huge, long context menu. And down here, there's a section called Genies. And under that, there's something called REST Reference Call. If you click on that, it gives you this pop-up box. And it doesn't show my YouTube here. Why? It should. Let's just open this up real quick and let's click save again. There we go. We go in here in Genie, REST reference calls. There it is. This is YouTube. This is the thing it generated for me. Why I had to go back in there, open it, and save it real quick, not sure. Anyway, these are all the endpoints that I can call in here. I could search the videos. I could get a list of everything that's in my playlist. And it comes with all these helpful comments that are pulled down from the API itself, provided by Google. And I'm going to pick on just playlist here. We'll copy example to clipboard. I'll click OK. Oh, it's just going to insert it. By default, it's going to insert all these comments and stuff describing what each parameter is that you can use. If you don't want that, there is a little drop down at the top that you can pick different options to remove those. But when you come into this code, and this is going to be true for, I believe, most, if not all, pardon me, I've got a cat on my desk. Okay. If not all, will be using a named resource provider, which you need to set up. And that named resource provider does all the credential things for logging you into a Google account through OAuth and validating that you have access to use those APIs in your Google Cloud Console. So this named resource is really the key thing that you need to set up. Adding the Google service, as we saw, we're done. We've done the demo. We added YouTube. We could go through and add a whole bunch of others. It's the same process. But in terms of getting access and being able to log in and use those APIs, Google requires OAuth authentication. And in Alpha Anywhere, you can set that up in one of two places in your project. You can add those, what we call named resource providers or resource providers, in the web project properties, so it's specific to your project. Or you can access them up here through the tools menu under named providers. The word resource is missing, just keep that in mind. These are stored in the whole workspace, and that's something to just know when you're working with your projects, because the named resources, you can't have multiple resource providers in your project with the same name. That includes any that have been defined at the workspace level. And something that I ran into when I was getting ready for today's demo was that I had a case where I had created a named provider here in tools called Google, but I had also loaded a project that had a named resource provider in the project called Google, and I was getting a bunch of warnings about it, and I was a little confused, and then I realized, oh, okay, I have one on the project and one at the global level, and I need to keep those separate. And the way I solved that is I just renamed one of them. But we're going to use project properties, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to search for resource, and this is what I'm looking for: name providers, resource providers, name providers. Highly recommend using this search tool up here now to find things, because this dialog has a lot of stuff in it. So if we open this up, and the screen here is the same one you're going to see in the tools menu. You get this dialog asking you to configure named resource providers. A named resource provider is basically a way of setting up credentials to access something. So providing Google OAuth authentication to use an API, or a few others. Let's see, let's make a new one. Let's call it webinar demo. And under here is a whole bunch of providers that we have built in. But if you don't see one that you need, you can make your own, and there's a whole how to create your own providers link here. You can go through that, read up on it, implement it. I had to do that to add a provider for a tool we use called HubSpot, and it turned out to not be that much work. It's just like a little piece of JSON you add to your project. But we're going to look at Google OAuth. You will notice there are two other Google things in here. There's one called API key. If you are setting up a service that uses a Google API key, you want to create a Google API resource provider. And the other one, which is used with our storage, our Google Drive storage connection integration, is called a Google service. And this one is just like a special email address that you've created that has access credentials on parts of your Google Drive or your Google account. So there's three in here. The one we're going to look at is Google OAuth, because this one can be a little bit tricky to get set up. And already we're stuck. Okay, so we don't have a client ID, we don't have a secret, we don't have test redirect URLs to think of, and then there's something down here called scopes and APIs, which we need to talk about as well. So let's start here with the client ID and secret and what you need to do to get that set up. So if you're back here in your Google Cloud Console on your project, the first thing you need to do is to make sure that the API you want to use that you've created in Alpha Anywhere is also here. And you can do that by clicking Enable APIs and Services here. We are going to search for YouTube. And there's a couple YouTube APIs. The one we've added is the Data API v3. So we're going to add that one. We will enable it. And we'll wait a minute for that to be enabled. And it's been added. So now this project has enabled the YouTube API. I can now call into it. Or not call into it, but go on to the next step so that I can use it. So just a little bit about the YouTube API. Let's see, try an API Explorer. This is the API Explorer for YouTube. This is where you're going to find all the information about stuff like we had playlists list. Go back here real quick. We'll cancel out of this. Go over here. Scroll down. Where are we at? Where are we at? Up at the top. You know what? Let's take out all the comments real quick and simplify this. Genies, rest reference, YouTube, uncommented. Let's go find playlist list. So this is the object that gets created. It's a playlist object. And here it is called, and it calls the list endpoint. So playlist is this, and the function name here is this option in this menu. So that's how you can look these things up. And list is pretty simple. It requires a part. And you need exactly one of these parameters: channel ID, ID, and mine. So if we wanted to call this over here, we need let's remove this. We'll need a part and a string, and I just happen to know, is it Alpha Software or Alpha Software Corp? Nope, it's Alpha Software. Here we go. So I think let's go down here. View full playlist. So up here, I believe this text right here where it says list equals and then there's a big old piece of text. That is our playlist ID. So let me think here. Let's do Snippet. And I think ID is the playlist ID. Okay. And let us execute it and see what happens. So I'm going to authorize this. This has already been set up. I'll allow it. 200. There are the items. These are all this is the snippet information. So this is information about that playlist itself. It doesn't include, I don't know that it includes all of the videos in it, but this is the information that it returns to me. And if you scroll further down here, it explains to you the type of information you'll get back. So here's one place you can come to experiment with these APIs to figure out how you need to call them. So we know we can take this snippet thing here. Let's just go back and set up our XBasic here. So
Can I
that
ask you what
was,
snippet is and why you knew to put it into that part thing?
so that's part. Part is the request parameter, and right here, this is a list of the values it can have.
I see.
Content details, ID, localizations, player snippet, and status. So I just
Okay.
picked snippet. And that is the part. And part is required. So here is arg's part. And that is so that's where I set snippet. And then over here, one of these three things is required: either channel ID, the ID, or this property called mine. I've never used that before. I'm not sure how that would work. But the other piece of, let's see what it is, ID. So here is ID, and this is the one I need to pass in. So if you're setting this up, these are the two values to set here to get a snippet of information about the playlist, which is this playlist, which if we go back here and just quickly look, it's the Alpha Anywhere demo and Q&A playlist. And so this will then be called with the named resource we still need to create, and then this code right here will do a show bar and a UI message box. We're not going to execute the code here, and I'll explain why later. But if we go back to where I was going with the OAuth setup, that screen that we clicked through when we made that call where it asked me to choose my Google account and approve access to the caller to pull that data from the playlist, you have to do that in your apps. And to get that set up, you have to do two things. You have to, I'm getting confused here. You have to create an OAuth credential, an OAuth 2 client ID credential, which is pretty simple. You say create credentials, you say OAuth client ID, the application type, it's a web application. We'll call this webinar demo. And then down here, there's just a few more pieces you need to do. I need to, I think I took a screenshot of this earlier. Let's see if I have it still. I do. All right. So these authorized redirect URLs are called after authentication succeeds. And in Alpha Anywhere, there's this special page called _A5 external authentication.a5w that is what is called. So we'll leave this blank for now, or maybe just create a basic one here. We'll call it HTTP localhost 1580 is the port. I know that. I'll call it webinar. And I'll explain what all that is when we get back here. So once I've created this, I get two pieces that I need. I need my client ID and my client secret. So I'm going to copy that. We'll come back to Alpha Anywhere. We'll go all the way back here and get back into our project properties and add that resource again. So go in here. We'll create a new provider. We're going to call it a webinar demo. The provider is a Google OAuth provider. This is the client ID. Oops, and it closed on me, but that's okay because I can click on this and the client secret that I needed is right here. There we go. So got those two pieces of information. This authorized redirect URLs is available for you in here, right here in this builder. So test redirect URL. If you click this drop down arrow, I know this looks like it's disabled, but it's not. Here are some suggestions for what that URL can be. I'm just gonna copy this for now and replace this and save it. So now that's up to date. And we go back in here, webinar demo, and see it again. There it is. You can add as many as you need. Just as a point of interest, this says localhost. If you go back in here, there's one also that uses your machine name. We made a change in Alpha Anywhere, and I believe it was with live test, but it might also be with the way live preview works, where instead of saying localhost in the URL or putting an IP address in the URL when you open it up in a browser, we started using your machine name by default. So keep that in mind when you're doing stuff. We had somebody write in a while back who was using web2cal and it broke, and it was because the system was defaulting to the machine name instead of the localhost, which web2cal requires. And that can be configured in your web project properties. I think it's in the runtime settings. So, well, let's use this one. We'll say that. Test redirect URI. And then the last thing that you need is scopes APIs. And the reason you need this is because whenever you do a Google OAuth authentication to get permission to do something, Google wants to know, what do you need? Like, what are you using? What are the things that you need access to? And that's specified within the scopes. And all of those scopes can be found in it can be found in the documentation for each individual API, if you can find it. There's kind of 2 or 3 variations on the API documentation on Google. But the other place you can go, which is very easy to find, and I'm going to put this in the chat window, is just the scopes page. And in here, it lists all their APIs and all the scopes that might be required. And these scopes are just URLs. But for the purposes of YouTube, YouTube Data API v3, which is down here on the corner, there's a little, I don't know how quick this is, it's a slightly quick way to jump down here. But this lists all of the scopes that this API might require. So one is manage your YouTube account. Another is view your YouTube account or manage your videos. Depending on what you're doing with the API, you don't need to include all of these scopes in the definition. You just need to include the ones required to do what you need. So read only is highly appropriate for just getting a list of information about our playlist. So if we come back here into this dialog and add a scope for Google OAuth, oh, I need to do new. Okay. Enter scopes. It's not giving me the pop-up. That's fine. So the friendly name to display is, let's do read only here. Let's copy this guy here. Normally there's a little thing that pops up here, and I'm not sure why it's not showing today. So this is the URL. There's the address. We'll just put it both in there, and we'll do YouTube read only. And I do have a second project open where this is all configured. I'm going to double check that real quick since it looks like we need to enter this manually today. All right. So it looks like what we did, this is blank. This is not blank. And then the friendly name that we gave it is YouTube read only. Okay. So that's the one I need. This usually shows you a drop down to pick from. I will investigate after this webinar about why that's not popping up anymore. So we'll click OK. No, we're stuck. All right, nobody look. I need to kill Alpha anywhere.
Maybe that's why it wasn't popping up.
I think it, yeah. It was working for me yesterday. This happens. It's not in the background, is it? I don't think it is. So I'm gonna kill this other one. Everyone remember what we did. There we go. The secret close button, end task. Thank you for your patience. So we're back.
All right.
We were in project properties. Named resource provider. Unfortunately, it didn't save, so we have to make it again. So we'll go webinar demo. It's a Google OAuth. We need our client ID. Oh dear, I don't see my secret anymore. Let's reset the secret. There we go. Okay. Client ID, secret, and we had picked the localhost one. Let's just quickly save this real quick and then go back in there and add the rest of the scopes. And rather than click on that link, let's add that friendly name, YouTube read only, and grab that off of the scopes page. Okay. All right. So we have the YouTube read only scope. And then click the last thing is turning on application level token. We want to log in once and use it for the whole application. Click OK. Click OK. Click OK. So that's added. Now, if we go back in there, you may have noticed that it's got a little red icon here, and there's this login button. You can't test this here. The way the login thing works is it would do a call out to Google and then prompt you to log in and then authenticate you here in the IDE. The problem is that we use an emulated browser to do that, and Google blocks that. So to verify that we've got this set up correctly, we need to run it in an actual web browser. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And this is getting into the realm of things that are kind of a secret, and I apologize that this is a secret, but this is why we're doing a webinar about it right now. So we're going to make a new UX component here, and what we're going to do is we're going to add a button. All right. And we're going to say login to Google. And let's use the primary subtheme because it's got a solid background. Click OK. What I'm going to do with this button is I'm going to add a piece of action JavaScript to it on the click event. I'm going to add new action, and I'm going to look for no, it's OAuth. There we go. I'm going to look for get application level OAuth access token from resource provider. So remember, I checked that box for application level token. This is what I need to use. If I didn't check it, I believe you have to use this one. But what this does is you add this, you tell it what service you want to call, Google Webinar Demo. Click OK. Click OK. Save. You've added a button that will now call the Google, prompt you for authentication, ask you if it's okay that the application that made this request does the things it says it's going to do if it or could do if it had access, and then let you either approve or deny that. So we're going to save this as Google Authenticate. Save that. And we're going to save a page. And we'll save the page as auth test. And then went over here, and I'm just going to live test this. I'm going to pick auth test, clear the live test folder, click OK. And I'm warning you guys up front, this is going to fail, and we'll explain why. So what I should see here is a button, log into Google, and when I click that, I get access blocked, Webinar's request is invalid. I can't sign in because I sent an invalid request. Error 400, redirect URI mismatch. So this is done intentionally for you guys. I wanted you to just see this and we'll talk through it. So this error message means that the URL that made the request is not in my list of authorized URIs, which if we go back to the API and we look at authorized redirect URIs, we see localhost 1580. But if we go here, we have localhost 1580 __ live test. Everything before this A5W page is the URI. So this is what we need to put in that authorized list. So we can go back here, add a new one, paste it there, copy this, paste that there, save it. And now, if my assumptions are correct, if we click here, it should prompt us to log in. And it does. So now we'll log in with Alpha Software YouTube, org internal. So I'm not allowed to do that. Let's go back here and we'll just pick my personal account, which may or may be blocked. All right, so this says it wants to view my YouTube account. Allow. I don't have I don't have any YouTube videos on my internal account, unfortunately. So I won't be able to test those API calls. But at this point, I'm logged in and I can make those calls because the server has captured all of that authentication information and is storing it on the back end for you so that when you make a YouTube API call with that named resource provider in your XBasic, it will succeed. So there's one more thing I want to show you here, and then I wanted to open it up for questions. So we're going to go back here. We're going to modify this a little bit more. We're going to add another control. We're going to add a panel layout. No, we're going to add a panel navigator around. And then here we'll add a panel card around our button. We're going to center the panel contents. And I'm going to add another button here, or another panel here. Panel card. Insert after. And let's add static text control. And I'm just going to type in some HTML. Welcome to the application. Okay. In this, we're going to change to programmatic. And we're not going to show the second panel until you have logged in and are authorized. So how do you do that? If you recall looking at this action, there's a redirect. This is for Safari Mac. Some browsers block the pop-up, so maybe you need to do a redirect to another page, then come back. Or show a confirmation dialog before redirecting. But this is all has to do with the authorization. This has nothing to do with your app itself. So we cancel out of here. We'll not save the changes. What you need to do is go over to client-side events, and you need to find the OAuth events. There are two. There's one called on OAuth completed, which is for PhoneGap applications / Cordova applications only. Doesn't apply here. We've got a web app. The other one is on OAuth authorized, and this is only called after authentication has been successfully completed. And it gives you a parameter called provider. So if we insert that provider parameter, this is how you can access it. We're just going to put an alert in here. Fully authorized. And then let's add eProvider. All right. And then object.set panel set active panel card 2, because that was the one that has our little welcome to the application. All right. Save that. We'll go back to the web project control panel. We'll live test again. With that, let's clear out the live test folder. I just like doing that. I don't know if stuff gets in there sometimes. So now if we're authorized, if we successfully authorize, it will take us to that screen. So if we go log into Google, successfully authorized undefined. Hooray! I don't know why it's undefined. Welcome to the application. So I clicked that button. We didn't get prompted to authorize access because we already did it. And that's been remembered here locally in Alpha Anywhere on the server. So now we're into our app, and now you can move forward with whatever it is that you need to do. And this e.provider, we could dig into that a little bit here. Let's just console log that out. Or even put a debugger instead, but still have the. So this is an opportunity for us to learn or use some of the testing skills that we learned last week, 2 weeks ago, last month seemingly. Let's live test this one more time. I'm gonna close these real quick too. All right, let's open up the console, log into Google, debugger. There's our E variable. Let's just take a quick look to see what's in it. It's over here in the scope area. Here's our local variables. So we have an access token. The access expires in the refresh token, but it doesn't look like we were given provider. So we'll continue. We're in our app. I think that's the end.
Terrific.
Yeah.
So you're authorized. It moved you to the new panel. And
yes, and so now that you're authorized and running here, the next step would be is to go back to that. Unfortunately, I closed it, but at this point, you could have buttons here on the second panel card that do an AJAX callback to make those API calls. Do the research, the whatever it is that you need to do, and then return some sort of status.
Could you also use it to log into the Alpha Anywhere security system, since you know that they were authorized appropriately through Google?
We have an integrated login to Google function already built into the UX component that you should use instead.
So use that one. Okay, got you. Don't re-roll it. That makes sense. Cool. Wow, that was really neat. So there's a fair amount of stuff to do with OAuth in terms of capturing keys and authorizing particular URLs that it can be called by and stuff. But then once that's in the Genie, it seems like it just works.
Yes.
Cool. So we had a request here about, wonder if you could touch on the address lookup Google API and maybe show an example of that or something like that.
Google address lookup. Are you talking about the thing on the text box? So a text box has an address auto suggest.
That's a good one. Okay. Yep.
Let's see.
And is that, and where is it pulling the data from?
Control type. So if you have a text box, you have a special control type, you can select address suggest, and then go in here and configure it. It requires a Google API key, which you now know where to go to get those. The API key is here. It is not an OAuth, it's an API key. And if you click more info, this explains what it is that you need to get.
Can we try it?
Do you want to add a Google? Yeah, let's see here. Site to request for you here.
While you're doing that, someone else said, listen, I ran into a similar error on that dialog box, the one that ended up freezing on you, and they think they know how to reproduce it, so they're going to send in a bug report for that issue. Which is
that would save me like 30 minutes of time, and that would be super helpful, and I would be
very, very grateful. And in fact, while we're doing this, you just want to take a time out, because I think it's always worth doing, to pop into Alpha Anywhere and show folks how you submit a bug report, because that's always worth knowing.
So you go to documentation.alphasoftware.com and you search for how to submit a bug report. And there's 2 types of bug reports you can send us. Actually, there's 3. There's a standard bug report. There's how to submit a bug report for a report letter, layout, or label, which if you're having a report problem, please use this one.
So
And
it
then
goes to the right
if you're having
people.
installer problems, please use the one that's about the installer, because we're almost 100% of the time going to ask you for your installer log, and 99% of the time that's not what gets sent on the first point of contact. So that would save you time and us, getting your issue solved faster. If you're going to submit a bug report, we ask you to test a few things first. But really what we need you to send is the reproducible test case. So the UX component that demonstrates the problem, the XBasic that demonstrates the problem, the thing that demonstrates the problem. If it's backed by a database, you need to include a backup of that database, the table, some sample data. It doesn't have to be the whole thing, but we definitely need that. And then clear details on how to reproduce the problem. And then once you've done that, there's an option in the help menu called send a bug report that you can click, which gives you more instructions that if you've come here first, you've probably hit all the points here.
You already know them. Yeah.
And send that to us. And in Alpha Anywhere, that's under the help, send a bug report. If you use a browser-based email client like gmail.com, check that box, click OK. It will tell you that this is the stuff you need to do. You need to email this particular address. This is the subject you need to use. And then this is the body that you need to include in that email, which includes really important information for us, such as the build number of Alpha Anywhere you're using, and the operating system you're running. So as everyone is aware, Windows 11 has been released, and we are finding differences between Windows 10 and Windows 11 on some of the UI elements. So including that piece of information is key in us being able to reproduce your problems.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
But yeah, so then you can just copy that to the clipboard and then, open up your email client, notepad here. I always put it in notepad and then go from there. If the files you need to send are too big, email custserve@alphasoftware.com for assistance, or go online and go to our contact support form, and we'll send you a special link you can use to upload and send those files. It can handle files up to 100 megabytes in size. But that's current. I'm not sharing this link quite widely quite yet because it's the form is a little under development for us. But at the end of the day, it will replace our contact us form.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. I have forgotten what question we were answering.
Okay, we were doing the Google addressed suggest, and we were at the point where we were going to supply an API key into Alpha Anywhere.
Yeah.
So I
So
think
you
we're
would need
already
to
at the
add.
console.
Let's see here. I always like to put the API keys in here in the project properties. It's I just don't remember which one it is. It's either maps, static maps, or geocoding. So we would need to first enable those on our account, and I'm just going to add all three because I don't know which one it is.
Okay.
So we'll search for maps. JavaScript. We need that one. We'll just view all 16 maps here. I like that they list it first. Let's see. Geocoding is for geocoding locations. That's required if you ever want to get the lat lon of something for an address. And then Street View Static Maps API, probably not related at all. But we can enable that, and I don't see anything else here that is about searching for something. So I'm going to assume one of those three captures it.
Yeah.
And if we go back to API library and click the back button, we can now go down to credentials and add a new API key. And we're just going to not copy that. We'll go here and edit it though. So I'm going to restrict this key, and I'm going to restrict it to, where are my maps? Oh, they're not loaded yet. Did it not add them? Did I have to wait for it to finish adding them?
Ooh, maybe that's it.
My
Yeah.
bad. Let's just add this guy here.
Okay.
Manage. API enabled. Okay, it's enabled. Perhaps this is just not reloaded yet.
Yeah, there might be a delay.
There can be a delay on enabling some of these.
But it's here in
There they
console,
are. There's
basically. That
maps. All
oh,
right,
there it
so
is.
we go
Cool.
back to credentials.
Yeah.
On the API key here, let's just restrict this key to those Google Maps ones. So the maps here, the Street View static, and the geocoding API. Click OK. So I've created an API key that will work for those three things. I can copy it here and go back to Alpha Anywhere, and it does those three things. I can paste it here and here and here. And click OK. And now the map control, the geolocation service action JavaScript, where you can geocode things, the looking up an address in the text box here. In fact, let's put it at the top here, so we don't have to log into Google to test it.
Okay.
So let's just, oh, not that far though. So live preview that real quick, because this one will work in this emulated browser environment because it just uses an API key. So we could do like
Right. It's not doing OAuth, which
1,
required
2,
you to.
3.
Yeah.
Can't load Google Maps. Do I own this website?
Oh, maybe it's not liking the URI because maybe it's in live preview or something like that.
Probably. There's probably more configuration I need to do here.
Yeah.
API restrictions, none. Restrict the key, save. Maybe it's because I didn't save it. Oh, I didn't finish setting this up.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Control is only F. So oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Okay, let's just add a slew of text boxes here. And just arbitrarily assign them in this guy. I've lost the settings. There it is. There we go. So we could do like not text box 1. That's the one we're typing in. We could do address 1 for latitude and address 2 for longitude, and mat parts to like 3. Short or long form? Short's fine. The street number is selected here, right? So I could pick a route, locality, postcode, country. Let's map that guy too. We did 3, so let's do 4 here. And it looks like it didn't save my API key, so we'll click OK and verify that's still there. Click through an error. Have a wild good time. Investigate it further after. On another day. I'm
All right.
just running into roadblocks right now. Best demo
you got us
ever.
pretty close though. So yeah, that's where you start.
Yep.
So we are. Let me take a look here. Oh, someone's saying, when do we get DevCon agenda? I hope to get that out to you all next week. So anyone who signed up, so I want to have it to you at least 2 weeks before the start. So that would be the 4th of October. But if I can get it out sooner, I'll do so. That looks like it for questions. We're just about out of time. Sarah, thanks very much for presenting it today and helping us out with the OAuth and Google services stuff, which I know confuses a lot of people. Hopefully you have made it more clear.
Yes.
Again, if you do have more questions, you could always send them to us at guides, GUIDES, at alphasoftware.com. Thank you, everyone, for attending today. We hope to see you at our next Wednesday webinar. Until then, take care and stay well. Bye-bye.